Hi, I'm Funk McLovin. Subscribe for more essays. Felix Colgrave is an animator on YouTube. If when I say that you thought of the likes of Egoraptor and OniNG, that isn't quite right. Felix Colgrave's animation style is something unique and fascinating, and I've been following him for some time now. He's made a few good shorts, most notably Double King and The Elephant's Garden, my favorite of which being Tainted Goods, in which a hapless salesman tries to sell off demons to an unsuspecting crowd. His style is what I can only call hypnotic. His characters move with an unmatched fluidity and often look rhythmic and uncannily smooth. The camera work is also quite dynamic, and the scores are adaptive, giving the works a holistic feel. Lately, his works haven't featured dialogue, a style which I find suits the contemplative nature of his works. A day ago, he released an animation called Throat Notes, which is one of his longest animations yet, second only to Double King. I'd love to take my crack at an analysis of this. You might have noticed that I said an analysis as opposed to analyze, because Colgrave's work is open-ended. There's no singular interpretation, nor should there be, and I think it's wonderful to discuss art in this way. Some people might dislike this interpretative aspect, but if you don't prefer it, then just pretend I'm correct. If you haven't seen it yet, give it a watch first. I'll wait.
Back here again, can't get enough of JoJo explains some interesting stuff.
Welcome back. Throat Notes begins with a seemingly random motif, a spinning star interacting with an orb, making a repeating tone. I say seemingly for reasons that will become apparent near the end. The title card plays and we pan down to what appears to be a brick landscape overlooking a sunset with a statue of some kind of weird animal being killed. From the water arises one of the film's main figures, a frog. Two more frogs, presumably nearby, are shown croaking at one another, star-shaped glinting complementing their cries. Up the bricks walks a nice little beetle with a friendly face on his carapace. Quickly he's eaten by one of the other frogs. Felix quite enjoys this naturalistic view of the world. Many of his shorts feature creatures feasting on one another. As suggested, the fly is not long for the world, consumed by the frog, falling into the frog's gullet where the star from before resides, the corpses of other bugs rattling around like beads in maracas. Colgrave's work is often geometric and quite mesmerizing to look at, even though he is depicting a frog consuming a cute little bug. Outside the frog's stomach, more frogs engage in collaborative song, their progeny chiming in. Up the pipes from this land of red bricks, we're invited into a toilet. One of the frogs has made its way out and is being shooed by the denizen of an outhouse, prodded at by a large toilet brush. As we zoom out, we see many of the pests this fellow has to contend with, from birds to cats of prey, to the tiniest fly who is summarily killed, to, yes, here we are, the main character, though you might not know it from their unassuming appearance. It's a Tasmanian devil, going by Colgrave's video description, wearing a large hat. We can't see its profile just yet. Importantly, though, it returns to the land of bricks to retrieve one of the frogs, and rather menacingly carry it back to their home. From the ominous music, one imagines the devil might be fixing to consume on the poor amphibian, but luckily for the wayward frog, it's not sustenance the devil craves. Once the devil returns home with their bounty, they're shown to have a domestic side, even politely hanging up their little hat. That's not to say they're not still menacing. They light a cigarette, lit only in shadowy, smoky flame, giving them a frightening appearance. It reminds me of something more stylized that Disney might do. Their intentions are revealed when the devil draws out the frog's star. This leaves the frog himself unable to croak, as well as inflating himself into a buoyant balloon, being carted off by a spider fellow. This yields the devil the volatile star, presumably for nefarious deeds. Those deeds are made manifest when the devil plugs into their computer. The devil then performs myriad experiments on the star using a keyboard interface, much to the chagrin of their downstairs neighbor. While this happens, we're shown a brief aside featuring a little caterpillar. When we return to the devil, their work seems to be done, and they ascend the trees high up to where the strange rattling cones reside, the topmost of which is old and gray, featuring mouths into which the frog's star is deposited. After a short cacophony, the cone plays a musical number, and the devil receives the applause of an audience of woodland creatures. But as the devil takes a bow, more stars are revealed in their hat, one of which makes a cat's cry and attracts the attention of one such cat in the audience, drawing their ire. We're spared the devil's fate as we return to the frog, sharing tea with the spider fellow, though it's getting late and the frog is sent on his way. After some struggle, Mr. Frog manages to attach himself to a drain pipe after it falls night under undulating stars. Sadly, the frog's solace is short-lived. The man from before is back with his brush, prodding the frog. In a panic, the frog reaches down the man's throat and retrieves his star. The frog leaves us with a brief mocking statement, using the man's own voice to mock him before absconding. The stars twinkle in the night sky. Alright, that's quite it. So, what do we make of this? The central motif of this cartoon is stars. Not the ones in the night sky, but visual, geometric depictions of the characters' voices. The star at the beginning and end alludes to this as well, setting us up for what's to come. Essentially, these stars are a metaphor for exploitation. Each frog, and presumably every creature, has one such star, evidenced both by the hatful of stars the devil has, as well as the impudent man eventually possessing one. The stars are responsible for each animal's unique sound. Early on, the devil, who is the only character to lack a mouth, and presumably by extension a star of their own, steals the star of a frog and exploits it to make music with. It's clear that the song that the cone plays is the one that devil appears to have programmed in, judging by how they were manipulating it using a computer, with a keyboard configuration not unlike a MIDI piano roll, which is present in many DAWs. Another piece of evidence is that the audience was clapping for the devil rather than the cone, signifying that while the cone was the one performing, the devil was responsible for the song itself. The cone also uses tones that are similar to a frog's, signifying that it is using the frog's own sound to compose. It's vital, then, that this sound is stolen. It's also irrelevant to some degree which source the sound comes from. The devil tries to capture one frog and fails before capturing the one that it settles on, and frankly, it's not like the devil couldn't have just asked. In this world, there are frogs capable of understanding human speech after all, since the frog mocks the man at the end. So the devil steals the frog's voice for their own benefit, and has presumably appropriated such voices in the past due to their hatful of stars. At the beginning, there was also a big statue of a man defeating a beast. In a land where men and beasts are on the same page, this looks pretty bad. There's a lot of theft that happens in the world of art, and at the world at large, much of it even after the art has been transformed in some way. This theme of exploitation is driven home at the end of the credits and the setting of the film. Quote, "I pay my respects to indigenous elders past, present, and emerging. Sovereignty has never been ceded. It always and always will be Aboriginal land." Felix Calgrave here is, of course, speaking of the Aboriginal Tasmanians. For those unfamiliar, the Aboriginals, more specifically the Palawa, were the people who populated Australia before the British colonization in 1803. This mirrors a lot of indigenous people's plights the world over, and how they are treated by those who colonize their nations, tying back to this theme of exploitation. The stars in the night sky at the end reflect the stars inside of the characters. They're beautiful, awe-inspiring, something primal. And when someone like the devil takes these stars and cheapens it for their own use, they are nothing but thieves, and in turn, force people who they have wronged into taking for themselves. I've never been to Tasmania, but I appreciate Colgrave's little glimpse he afforded us. Go give a buck to Felix's Patreon. Maybe in a year or two we'll have another wonderful film. And thanks for listening.